Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. We are here with friend, shot show, mentor, Kendra. Kendra, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Mac?
Well, I didn't get sick, so
Oh, well, good for you.
I'm chalking that up to a win in life.
Yeah, I was pretty sick actually. Actually, it was the first year that I've been sick like ever after SHOT Show. I caught the SHOT Show flu, and I blame the fact that I spent the majority of the show with a 25-year-old versus my 40-year-old husband. So,
That's very possible. Yeah,
yeah.
very possible. Yeah, anytime we have people on from Shot, we talk about, did you get sick? And I went into Shot Show with a cough, just a lingering cough. I wasn't actually sick, but I was like, if I ever was, this would be it. And I was surprised that I didn't. So, very excited about that. But we have you back on. We had you on last year. We're talking about sort of prepping for Shot Show, things like that. And you sort of took an alternative approach to Shot this year. I know you are a seasoned veteran when it
I
comes
am a seasoned
to
veteran.
this trade show. It's sort of an interesting thing. If you are doing any sort of content creation in this space, like I think the hope is to someday be able to go to Shot Show, right? And
Right.
so for me, that's how you and I got connected. And I was just like, please teach me your ways. So I'm excited to know what did you do this year? What was different for you?
So this was a very different year for me. So in the past years, I've approached SHOT Show from a very like distribution, manufacturing, very business esque perspective. It was still very business esque, but it was a whole other world which I have not been a part of. I only create SHOT Show content where it's kind of like different, where people create content that way and then they go to SHOT Show and then right because it's based off of their niche. But I only create SHOT Show content. I make content once a year. And so it's just on this, right? And so everything else is just kind of noise just to keep the algorithm up. But it was interesting. Through social media, I've made lots of friends. I'm a very friendly person. I'm sure you are aware. But I made friends a few years ago with Emily Stanley, and she invited me to some more exclusive events this year as her, hype man plus one, and it was wild. It was definitely um weird in some instances, but wonderful in others. We went to Project Gunway, which is like causing all the problems right now for a lot of people. I guess there's a gentleman on YouTube who's freaking out about it. But yeah, so I went to Project Gunway. I went to the Gundies. Those are things I don't normally do. This was the first year for Project Gunway. But yeah, so interesting stuff.
So, yeah, it is interesting. I want to talk a little bit about Emily. You sort of told me about her last year. I forget what is her social tag.
Princess and the Pistol.
Thank you. And I follow her. I'm a big fan. I was lucky enough to get voted micro influencer of the year as the one
Oh,
of
nice.
the people you could vote for. I am not micro influencer of the year if anybody is curious. But if you vote for me, I appreciate it. But she was voted or she was nominated as well for I think female
Yeah, most
influencer of the
influential. Yeah, most influential female of the year. So this is her. I think her second nomination. She didn't get it last year, and then yeah, she didn't get it this year as well. But I mean, it's pretty cool to be nominated for something like that. The gal who won against Emily was 13 years old, um, and so that is significant, right, in the grand scheme of what
yeah.
have you done, right? Like what have you overcome? Emily is amazing. I wish she would have won, but I could definitely see where that happens and where people go, oh, well, we should vote, for the 13-year-old because this is a new life experience for her and this is amazing. And she totally deserved it. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, being I always sort of wanted to attend the Gundy, and I I wasn't sure, like, because the way Shot Show set up, and I'm like, "Ugh, it's pretty late, and it's like Shot's gonna be starting and things like that." And then I got nominated, and I was like, I guess if I make it into the top five, I'll go. But I
Yeah.
was like under no illusion because it's the category is like from 1,000 to 50,000. And most of the people that were nominated were, they're pistol shooters or AR. They do a mixture of stuff. I'm very,
Right?
very new. There's no
I
way I'm going to
felt
win this.
weird. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Because one of the biggest things for me this year was that I only met one other guy that was a long range precision shooter. And I just happened to meet him at like the circle bar. And like I started talking with him and like people were looking at us weird because you nerd out when you're long range precision shooters are a little different than pistol shooters in my opinion. We geek out a little differently. And maybe we just we're like the guys who are like we're the fuds of the firearms industry these days because we look at it and we go, I would never like why what is it, the ARC, the ARC, all the new stuff like 338 Lapua or death, right? And like we get all excited and super passionate, but we nerd out. And um that's one of the things I'm grateful for being friends with Emily, is why I liked doing Shot Show with her, is because I'm weird. I can be very weird when it comes to firearms. I like make weird noises. I snort. I like, get real nerdy with my glasses. And I'm like, oh, look at this. Look at this like $10,000 rifle system that is like amazing. And I want one, right? And other people are like, well, why would you get that versus you can get, same thing from Ruger for like $1,200. And I'm just like, you just don't get it. You just don't get it. And so I missed that for sure. Um, because it was a different crowd. And it's not like it was a bad crowd. It was just a different crowd, right? And so it's not the guys who are a little less politically correct freaking out over long range precision rifles or niche items. It was, I feel like they were politically correct in the sense that um, they said things that they were expected to say, like GOA stuff, like ATF related things and all that kind of stuff. And so they felt comfortable saying those things, but it was definitely not the same crowd. So
So it's really interesting, that sort of dynamic of Shot, right? I mean, for me, I sort of took a broader view. Like I didn't do anything different, but I did look at it different from a different lens. And I was looking at, okay, like who's speaking there? Who, like, are there going to be any lobbyists there? What nonprofits or organizations could I potentially connect with on that front? And granted, I still visit all long range stuff, but it does feel a little bit like, the other crowd that's there is a little like they got a lot more fun stuff to do.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
true.
it does seem like, I know I see you doing like the little claw thing, and I'm like, how do I always miss that? Where is that at?
There's a
And I'm
few
like,
of
it
them.
literally.
I never win anything, so it's so
But I don't ever see them. I just literally, I'm not by anything that like is that sort of stuff. So it
right.
is interesting, and I chose not to go to the event, just because I thought, I should probably get some sleep at their busy days. But it did look like a lot of fun. Did you have a good time? What was that experience like, being a, first time person there?
It was really fun. It was really great. I met a lot of different people. I had seen some of the people that were at Project Gunway, so I kind of already had some familiarity there. But everyone was really awesome. I don't drink, and so that's like a big social aspect for a lot of these events, is that there's alcohol, and so I don't drink, and and it's like I'm tired. I'm old. I'm like, it's past my bedtime. And so, but, it was really great. We got to dress up, and that, I love a good dress up event. I host a lot of events, and I do a lot of things in which there is a formal attire dress code, and so I'm all about that. I was solid. I was ready to go. So that was really fun. There was some interesting experiences there. It really opened my eyes to the kinds of things Emily experiences every day. On the internet, there are a lot of trolls, and I'm so proud of how far she's come and all that she's accomplished with her followers and things like that. I don't know how she does it. I really don't.
No.
I have a short fuse or a low tolerance for poorly behaved men, and so
Mm.
she yeah, there was a person there that approached her and just immediately started taking pictures of her. Um, in a very creepy way. I don't think they were slightly intoxicated, which I mention often. It's probably never a good idea to drink at SHOT Show, especially if you're in a professional capacity. I get that it brings camaraderie, but it also brings very poor behavior. And this person walked
Mm.
up to her with their camera, like this close, like we're right there, started taking pictures of her going like this. And I'm like, hey, because I'm her friend, and then our friend Alan was there as well, and we were like, do you want us to take a picture of you with her? Right? I worked in PR for a long time. I know how to navigate this kind of situation. And he goes,
Mm.
no. And we're like,
Mm.
oh, okay. And then I was like, well, let's give her some space. And so he leaves. And, Emily sits down on the stairs. I'm talking to Alan, and this guy comes up again, but like puts the camera right in this area. And I'm like,
Mm.
whoa, that like, no, we're not doing this. Like, you need to step away. And so I don't know how she does it. But for a lot of people who are currently complaining about, um, the Runway or Project Gunway presence, and the Gundies, and how it's just a bunch of gun bunnies, they sure really fed into the fact that's what that was, and I was just like, what is wrong with you people? So that was probably my only negative experience, but it was such a profound experience that I was like, I think I'm okay. Like, my presence online doesn't have to be significant. I like my niche following. So
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I want to say this in a way where it like can't be clipped and then I get canceled, but like I would not trade places with a woman in this industry. I
right.
cannot imagine how creepy and uncomfortable every single day is in this industry for women.
Right.
Um, yeah, I definitely would not. But that's one of the reasons I like her content a lot because I think she's funny. She's very creative and she's just cool. I mean,
Right.
what
Very
I
normal.
identify as like I ride a motorcycle and like I'm into like fun stuff, but cute stuff, and I like to shoot and I'm like, all right, like I resonate with that. Like that's a person I would want to hang out with, right? But yeah, it's that's it's a weird part of the industry. The main one of the main reasons I didn't go was because I was worried they weren't gonna have food there. I was like, it's like dinner time there, and I also don't drink. I haven't drank for 3 years. So I
Yeah.
was like, am I gonna have anything to eat or drink there? Like, what's going
No
on?
snacks. Nope. I
Yeah,
didn't. I didn't see any
was
snacks. I spent a lot of this
okay.
SHOT Show really hungry, because it was like event after event after event after event, and so that was yeah, I was very hungry, but I didn't gain any weight at SHOT Show, so that's like a plus because usually I get a little chunky from all the delicious food. So,
Yeah, fair enough. I was a lot better. I heed your advice because I didn't last year, and I was so dehydrated. I was so hungry by the end of the day, and I showed up a little bit later. I ate in the morning. I drank
yeah,
all my water, and I got some during the day. And I made a habit to like ask Boots if they had any water, which I was
yeah.
sort of didn't want to do last year, but I did, and they're like, "Oh yeah, of course, here." And I was like, "Oh, thank you so much."
Right. I
So
totally stole food from the Desert Tech booth because they would bring like lunch and I know that they don't finish it. So I go over there and I stole some lunch for me, Emily and Alan. And yeah, there was waters there and stuff like that. But the food at SHOT Show is horrific. It smells good, but it never tastes that great. And so and it always gives me a stomach ache. So yeah, it was yeah, that was pretty funny because they were like, "What do you do? What are you doing? What's happening?" And I'm like, "Just wait here."
where's the food coming from?
Yeah, I went into the back and you know, what was it? I think it was
I don't
burgers.
eat there. They have like the food court area.
Yeah.
I don't eat there because in my brain, it's probably like extremely overpriced and the lines
Oh
are
yeah.
always really long. You see, I'm toting around this camera rig, so I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna deal with that. Um, Plus, we're in Vegas. We're like arguably has some of the best food in the world.
Right.
So it's so
Yeah.
like, I would rather like snack on some fruit and nuts throughout the day, which is what I did, and then go have like a decent meal in the evening. So
Right. And I think it's pretty
that's
like if you approach SHOT Show planned and mapped out, like it shouldn't be hard. I think people get really overwhelmed and so they depend on that, the food
mm,
downstairs, but plan out your lunches, plan out your
mhm.
like make sure you eat a solid breakfast. I know at the link there's like two places right there as you're walking through that you can get really good breakfast. And so eat a solid breakfast. If it's solid enough, you may not actually need anything significant for lunch. And so you're good by the time you're packing up at like 4. And so that I think a lot of people kind of waste time there because they're not planning ahead. So
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, that was smart.
No, right there with you. Walk me through this runway deal. I did not know what was going on, and then I saw you posting stuff on it. I saw Emily posting, and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool. It's like a fashion show in the
It
gun
was.
industry."
Yes, it was a
Okay,
it was a private event. So it was invite only. It
thank
was
God.
sponsored by some pretty affluent brands. I know that Sig Rose was on there, and I apologize, but I can't recall who else was on the list. But the brands that were participating in it though were uh, you know what was cakes, that the brand of the bag cakes where they pull out, you know they're
Yeah,
like all the girls are super cute and then they pull out their guns or whatever. And so um Bullet Bloom was one of the brands, the Safe Civilian, which makes tactical apparel, or like body armor fitted to men and women. And so that's a pretty big deal because a lot of the times body armor can be pretty detrimental to women, especially in law enforcement. Um, there's a gal that is also pretty prevalent online who was a part of the show who actually had just hurt herself pretty severely because of her belt and the way it sits on her as a female, and she's in law enforcement. And so these brands were all like really amazing. They created really amazing stuff. It wasn't about necessarily what the women were wearing. It wasn't about the clothing in terms of fashion. It was more about how the women are wearing things like they were wearing stuff from Safe Civilian. They were wearing like slash proof um, bandanas. They kind of remind me of like wild rags, like very westerny, but they're slash proof, right? And so their accessories were the highlight of the show, and then they were wearing things that they enjoyed wearing, right? And so the whole point was that these women who are not gun bunnies, despite what YouTube is saying right now, these are women, and we'll get into that later, what a gun bunny is, but these women are very successful. Most of them are entrepreneurs. They have relevance in the industry. They just happen to be conventionally attractive. They're gorgeous, right? And so they're walking in this show showcasing all of these products. And it's important to women like me, right? Where I am a mother of four. I am not walking around tacked to broed out at all times. I am wearing very casual clothes a lot of the time. Or I go, when I do my events, or my nonprofit events where I'm wearing something a little bit elevated, I want to know that I have something that I can wear with that, that I can still feel protected, because I am in the state of Utah where it's constitutional carry, and I'm carrying a firearm with me 99.9% of the time. And so the whole point of the show was to showcase that any kind of woman can carry these firearms, or any kind of woman can protect themselves. And it doesn't have to be, the standard in which is being set, which I think is incredibly smart, because these women, you have to consider that the fastest growing demographic of firearms is women. So why would you not cater to that crowd? Why are you calling them gun bunnies and saying that they're not, successful in the eyes of you, who has probably had, like, not you, but of the eyes of these individuals who are saying negative things about this showcase. You guys probably have the same products that you've always had, right? And you've never had to develop something or modify things in order to fit your body, because things are made for you. And so it was really amazing. They worked so hard on it. And Chris Chansky had it at the range. So they really transformed that space. It was really awesome.
I mean, I don't know. There's so much to digest there, right? I sort of I sort of worry about people as a whole who feel so threatened by such a small thing in the world, you know?
Yeah,
It's
right.
like it's a fashion show in the industry, and like I don't know, maybe they just never been in love in their life, but like I love my wife, and she likes to look good when she goes out, and if she wants something that also protects her, that looks good, then great, right? I mean, I don't know. I just don't really understand a lot of that hostility and insecurity around stuff like that, right? And in my opinion, because I approach the market from a marketing standpoint,
Exactly.
um,
Yeah.
more shooters, the better, right? I mean, that's what we need. If we can get an extra 100,000 women long range shooters in the industry this year, that's a huge win. So I don't know. It's so interesting, but what about the event itself? Like, I assume because she was behind the curtains most of the time, you were sitting and I've only seen fashion stuff in movies, so I don't really know. But were you like sitting in like a row, like around the stage,
Oh,
and
it was a
they
standing room. Yeah, so it was standing room. So the folks who got chairs were the sponsors. So they would buy, they gave them, like, I think, like 10 or 15 chairs, and they could place whoever they wanted in those chairs, which was fine. It was a little tight, but I know that they're making that correction for next year. They're going to get a bigger space. They just weren't expecting it to be as successful as it was. Um, but yeah, so basically, I showed up, almost got ran over, but it's fine. I know I'm short, so I'm walking up. I'm alone, right? Because Emily's been there all morning. Um, you have to dress up. I wore, a pretty conservative gown. So you walk up, there's a line to go on the red carpet. And then so you kind of make your way around, you take some pictures, and then you are interviewed. And this is so embarrassing now that I talk about it out loud, but Emily thinks it's the funniest thing ever. The gentleman, when approaching, goes, "Oh, like, who are you here with, basically, or like, what do you do in this, market?" And I was like, well, I used to work for Desert Tech, I guess. I should have said I work for Axel, but I don't know why I panicked. And so I was like, it's fine. Like, in my head, I'm like, I used to work for Desert Tech, I guess, but I'm not here for me, right? I'm here for Emily because I'm Emily's plus one. But I said, like, plus one like three times. And then, but he was like, "Who's that?" After he had already interviewed her, right? And I'm just giving this poor guy a hard time because I was like, I love Emily. She's my favorite person, right? And so I'm like, all of a sudden you see it in the film, like, where, like, I kind of have like a sleeper agent switch, and it goes bloop, and like PR marketing Kendra busts out and just gives word vomit of all of Emily's stats online. And I'm like, so yeah, that's who she is. So So yeah, I was like, it's there. It's always in there. I know everyone's stats, right? Because that's what, a lot of us, you're pulling it up on Brand Watch, like, how do they feel about my friend? Or, and how are they, their general mood towards the, on the internet towards these people. And so, yeah, it was pretty funny. So then you walk in and there's like a bunch of things going on. So there's like one of those cameras that goes around you. And then there's like this like loop camera thing that was really cute that me and Emily did later on in the night. But you walk in and there's all these brands that have like little tables set up and they're like, this is what we do. Here's like a little area for you to take pictures in with some of our product. There was a ton of people there, and what was so funny is I made a little group of friends by being overwhelmed and hanging out in like a corner after a certain while because I have a pretty big tank when it comes to socializing, but when I can't hear people well, it gets overwhelming for me, right? And so I met a group of folks who were just so sweet, and I talked to them for a lot of it, and so yeah, so they were great, and then I kept seeing them at other events, them at the Gundies, and then I saw them throughout the show and things like that. And so we became mutuals. But yeah, so it's a great networking event for sure. I think that women in firearms are taking a much more serious approach than they have, in the last 10 years. We've grown a lot. We're not just gun bunnies, despite what fragile masculinity likes to say. We have relevance here. And a lot of the times, and I'm gonna break the internet right now, but a lot of the times we're better shooters. So there's so yeah, take that. Just kidding.
With that. Well, funny enough, uh, my wife is naturally a really good shooter, which I just blew my mind, right? Because I sort of grew up around guns and things like that, and when I was first looking to do my first custom build, we had went out with somebody who they had a bunch of builds here from the company I wanted to work with, who wasn't local, and she was shooting so good out to like 450 yards, and I was like, first off, you're British. Second off, you're
First
my
off,
wife. Like what? Yeah, like what's going on here? But it was, I don't know. It was, I just thought it was really cool. I was so impressed, and now it's something to brag about. Oh, my wife's a
yeah,
good shot. But I
right.
sort of wonder, like, foundationally, like if like the way, I don't know what it is, but yeah, really, yeah, I've seen a lot of women who are, and matter of fact, here in Sacramento where I'm at, one of the best shooters here, and arguably like the best shooter, she is female. She's really really good. I think she did officially set a national record in bench rest. She
Okay.
shot, I think, 10 shots at I think it was 600 yards and like half an inch.
Okay.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
So
So I think that when it
there
comes
with.
to female shooters, it's especially like when we're talking about like long range stuff, we're looking at like hand eye coordination. Um, that is unfortunately something because I cannot see well. I don't have a lot of that or depth perception, but I think I'm a pretty solid shot. But that's the joke, right? Is because I say I'm a long range precision passenger princess because Dustin basically sets it up for me. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So,
Fair enough.
but yeah, I'm not that bad, I joke, but yeah, so yeah, it was fun to see, but yeah, it was definitely a lot more women in the pistol kind
Yeah.
of side of things. um there was there was an Olympian there. There
Oh,
were
cool.
more like women who do like a lot of like defense training. There were some law enforcement a part of it. So to take all of that, and maybe they didn't have this, the people talking, maybe they don't have the information on what it is because it's not super transparent on what it was. Um,
Mhm.
so maybe some of like the follow up PR should have maybe included that, but these women are not just models, right? Not saying that there's anything wrong with being just a model, but these women run successful businesses in defense. So to just
Mhm.
take all that information and then just disseminate it to being like, oh, they're just a bunch of, it's just a gun bunny event. I'm not going to talk about it. And it's like, well, why are you talking about it then? Why did you even bring it up? Why are you so
Yeah.
offended by, women empowerment, right? Which it's silly. So it is what it is. But I think that hopefully some more stuff comes out of the event about actually what it stood for and what it really was. So
Well, hopefully this will help, your perspective on it, people listen in and see it. I have a shooter that I met out here at Ladies of Long Range. I think she goes by Mama
oh
Bear Tactical or Mama Bear Defense or something.
yeah,
She knows Emily.
she
I
was
saw
there.
them do some. Uh,
Yeah,
and
she was
I tried to
there. I
connect.
met her.
I tried to connect with her. Yeah, she's doing an event very soon. She invited me to, but I have something conflicting. But she's a really great advocate for the space. I love how she dips her. She does shotgun and handgun, and she dips into long range. Very cool person. But I want to sort of touch on this gun bunny thing that you're talking about. For those who are not familiar, right on a bell curve, right, left being all the way, this not a thing, and right being you are 100% a gun bunny. What does that mean, right?
Right. So I've never fully understood the concept of a gun bunny because I've never actually met a woman who wasn't successful and was classified as a gun bunny. But it's a fuddy thing, right? It's the fuddery of the firearms industry to call someone a gun bunny. A gun bunny is typically a woman who is conventionally attractive, um, maybe very busty and bodacious, and all of a sudden she's holding a firearm that she doesn't know how to use. That's like the far. That's my understanding of the far reach of a gun bunny. Um, when but when you look at it, are you just mad that she's getting paid for holding guns? So, you know, and using it in that way, like, oh, she's just a gun bunny. But I'm like, just a gun bunny. I was like, if you're sitting there and you're holding, military style firearms that I will never touch, I think you're the coolest freaking person. I don't care if you can shoot it. That's cool. Right. And those guys, and I think it kind of more so associates, and it's like the 90s. You remember in the night, and this is going to age us, but you remember in the 90s when there was like, you'd walk into like a garage and there was like a girl in tiny undies, like on a car, on a calendar. I think that's what they're going for when they're saying gun bunny. But I'm like, that girl got paid. So so what's the problem here, right? She was working. She wasn't doing it for your gratification. And I think that a lot of um, folks may think that, well, because she's doing it for my gratification. So I'm the only one. My opinion matters, but it really doesn't. They're doing it because they're getting paid to do it. Is the reality of the situation. And so at the end of the day, though, I tell folks like that to look inward and then look upward because that's between you and Jesus Christ, my friend. There's something going on there. If you're going to judge someone else for surviving, that's not what we're meant to do. So it is what it is. But I know that some of the women are newer to the industry. And Tamkin, who created cakes, she recently mentioned, and I don't know everything about her, but she recently mentioned that she's newer to owning fire, or she bought her first pistol a few years ago, and then she developed cakes, right? Excuse me. But these women um, hear that word and they're just like, "Oh, that sounds offensive," but because it's the way that they're saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when I did market research for my name, when I was like, okay, I'm going to change it, right? Call sign granola is no longer working for me. It's no longer beneficial to me because I'm no longer doing that kind of content where it's like prepper style. I was like, what can I use? And long range bun, because, I was like, I'm going to take that word back. It's mine now. It is no longer yours. If there's no one who's going to sit there and go, oh, she's just a gun bunny, because I'm going to be like, yeah, I am. That's exactly what I am. Sure. If that's what you want to say, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And so taking kind of the ownership of that has kind of deterred some of like the naysayers, or turning it
Mhm.
into, a joke where Eric from SI Tactical goes, oh, she's SI Tactical's favorite gun bunny, because I obviously don't fit that definition, but I can in certain instances, but it's usually just used to make someone feel bad. And it doesn't make me feel bad. So they can suck it. So
One of the things I love about,
speaking of that.
I'll speak directly to long range precision shooting because that's what I cover. What I love about these disciplines is, so far as the perspective of it being a sport, it's the great equalizer of sports. It takes
Yeah.
very, very, very little strength to pull a trigger.
Yeah.
And so in that capacity, everybody is mostly equal on that front, right? Granted, if you're doing PRS and you're carrying around a 25-pound rifle, maybe that's a little bit different, right? But ultimately, there's a ton of prone shooting stuff, ton of bench shooting stuff, and you don't have to have rifles that heavy. And so, to me, it's sort of an interesting space because there isn't really anything to point at to say like one sex would innately be any better than anyone else, right? Like if we were talking about Olympic lifting, okay, well, he's got a bigger frame and he's got more muscle and whatever, right? I understand that, but you're pulling a trigger at the heart
Right.
of shooting, right? So
Right.
it is sort of a weird thing to me, that people would be so upset or frustrated on that. And again, there's a huge demographic of people who, from two perspectives, I want more shooters in the space. But on the other side, like, these are my friends. This is how I always look at women. They're my friends. This is my family. This is my wife. This is my daughter. And like, I want all of them to be safe, whatever that looks like, right? And
Yeah.
so why would I talk down about that when like these are the I look at them as these are the people in my life, right? So
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I'm too level headed, right? Maybe that's the problem. I just don't get the angst.
Right. And like walking, and this has never happened to me before, right? So walking into SHOT Show, um, we were called gun bunnies immediately. And I'm like, whoa, like this has never happened to me before. Like, what
Mhm.
in the world? Because we were making content. But think of it this way, like I've been making content for around desert tech for years, and I've never been
Mhm.
called a gun bunny, and I'm doing silly things. No matter what I'm doing silly things, right? But it was
Mhm.
because we weren't near the booth. We were like in a corner. We walked in to that first room, and there was like a trend where like you kind of like, it's like slow-mo throwing your hair, like, we made it, blah blah blah. Well, these I didn't hear it, but Emily goes, don't you just hate it when these guys who uh or don't you just hate it when men call women gun bunnies because they're like intimidated by their existence or something like that? And I go, well, and I don't think, right? I just hear her and I go, well, yeah, well, I think it's usually like mostly insecure men who are saying that. I was like, I know a lot of like really great men in this industry, and I was like, but normally they just tell me to pull out my gun, which is always bigger, right? And so, right, because that's what, our friends are like, Kendra just has a bigger gun than you, that's why you're jealous, right? And so I pull it out, I say that comment, I chuckle a little bit because I think I'm hilarious. And Emily goes, did you not see those guys? And I was like, no. And she goes, they literally walked by us and went, ugh, gun bunnies. And I'm like, excuse me, thank you. You think I'm young enough to be a gun bunny? Like, okay, first, and I was like, that's rude. I'm like, I love being a gun bunny. Like, screw that. Like, if that's what you're gonna call me, screw that. Like, but how unprofessional. This is still an industry insider event. You are still representing the company that is on your badge. So to blatantly tell people who you don't even know who they are that they're gun bunnies is like crazy behavior at an industry event. And so she ended up, we're walking to the Desert Tech booth and she's making a post. And I was just like, I'm still flabbergasted. My what do they say? My gases are flabbered. So I was like, what in the world? This has never happened to me in real life before. We joke about it happening in real life, or like we feel it when like, you're at the range and like, the FUDs roll their eyes. But these were like younger guys. And so I was just like, man, you guys heard somebody on the internet say that one time. And I'm like old enough to be your mom, I feel like. And go to your room. Go to your
Yeah.
room right now is what I wanted to say. So
Well, I deal with my own fair amount of like difficulties getting into SHOT Show, right? Being like I'm not from a traditional media outlet.
yeah.
I'm not with a big magazine or anything like that. And I always think like, Jesus, like look, I got like hundreds of pieces of content out,
Yes.
articles, videos. You guys like help me out a little bit here, right? But I sort of once I'm there, I sort of understand it a bit more because it's people like that, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, in my brain, I was just having a conversation. Obviously, we're at the end. SHOT Show's over. People, are prepping for IWA right now. So it's sort of this weird time where it's like I get a few replies from companies, and we're doing follow up on what we want to do this year. And we were talking about filming, right, and how like they felt like there was an over index in people filming with their phones and less production and stuff like that. And I told them, I was like, yeah, I think it's a lot easier. Phones look good or whatever. I was like, but I just can't do that professionally because of the regard I hold SHOT Show. And like I understand
Yes.
this this is a B2B conference. Like these are CEOs, the VPs, these are your C suites people. And I think maybe sometimes people don't understand and they maybe take advantage of like how difficult it is to get in front of a CEO or an owner and shake their hand and get to interview them. In
Yeah.
so many industries, it's an impossibility, right? And so I take it very, very seriously. And when I hear stuff like what you're saying, and when I see people, and I think about this all the time too, I'm like, if there's 60,000 people here, there's probably like at least 200 that are going to lose their jobs when they go back to work next year or next week, right? They're
Yeah.
not going to have jobs because of the way
Yeah.
that they acted there. And it's a combination of a lot of things. But yeah, it's sort of a weird, and I think it's some of it might be because like in some ways the threshold to get in is fairly easy, right? Like if you have an FFL and you do something in the industry like that, like that's a
Yeah.
little bit easier. So um,
Well, these
yeah,
gentlemen were
it's a
from a brand, like they were from a company that is very well known, and so and the one that was at the Gundies that was inappropriate was also from a very affluent business, and so I'm sitting there and I'm like, you have no idea who I am. But also, like, I don't think that I'm someone important in the industry because there are those who are important and affluent, right? But I am respected in this industry,
yeah.
right? And everyone knows that I'm a very outgoing, silly, wild person, right? And so I do weird things and I don't really worry about who's judging me at any given time. But one thing I don't tolerate is unprofessionalism in professional spaces and poorly
Well,
behaved men. So that combo kind of like bothered me for the rest of the day. So
I, as an individual, mostly tried to avoid conflict, but I
yeah.
do think if I was a woman and that did happen to me and I saw where they were at, I would 100% go to their booth and be like, "Hey, it's me. The girl you called Gun Bunny earlier. Just wanted to see if you could walk me through some of your product." Like, I would be a bit confrontational.
Right. And
This is
I don't have that in me to like give them the time of day. But,
yeah.
the person who harassed Emily, she approached them later on at their
Oh
booth and said delete
wow.
those pictures. And I'm like,
Yeah.
good for you. Like good for you for setting your boundary because you can be a public figure, but it doesn't mean
Mhm.
that you don't have a right to like respect your privacy. Like and
Yeah.
so yeah, It was interesting. I've
That's
never had that happen to me before. And it was because maybe it was because I wasn't wearing like tactical clothes. So what
mm,
happened was Dustin kept my suitcase because he was bringing down some of my clothes, and I only brought down the gowns for the formal events because I flew and he drove, and so by the time he got there, I hadn't seen him yet, so I just had to wear what I had, and so it was a little bit more frilly than I would normally wear to a SHOT Show, but regardless of that, that's that's silly that you're gonna classify me that based off what I'm wearing or your perceived. That's just an indication. Would you call your mom that? Because would you call your daughter that? Would you call your wife that? Like, if you wouldn't call them that, then maybe you shouldn't call random women that you see out in public or on the internet that. It's probably a good idea to not do that. So
yeah, well, it's an interesting thing too because in my brain, the expectations is the women that are there probably would be in dresses or what do you call it, like business female business suits. I don't know if
yeah,
there's a special name or whatever because you're there on business, right? So like
right.
they're not at a range. They're at a conference.
Right.
So
I'm like, what is your
that's how they see
expectation on how I should dress and why does it matter? Does it matter when you walk
it.
into a room like of high powered women and you're like, oh, she's wearing this? And you're like, no, it's not relevant. And so,
Why
um,
why people are showing up in knee pads and elbow pads to a conference doesn't make
right.
sense either.
And
But
I think that that's the importance of something like Project Gunway. And the people talking about it negatively are proving a point, right?
mhm,
That they actually don't know the female demographic. They don't,
mhm,
and they're not tapping into it. And they're. I mean, we wear regular clothes. Women are vast creatures, right? We the thing where she's all like, don't tell them that we can shape shift because they're going to tell the church, right? Like we can do many things. So like I wear makeup. Does that make me a gun bunny? No, it does not. It just makes me an everyday woman. So
yeah,
so yeah, but that was definitely a very different experience for me because, and again, I'm used to being completely surrounded by men. Like when I worked SHOT Show, I was completely surrounded by men, right? And so maybe they provided some sort of safety net for me. Maybe that is the importance of safe men, is saying, "Hey, that's not cool. Like that's not appropriate." Because some of these gentlemen didn't care until we told them that other influencer men thought that they were being inappropriate. And that's like
mhm,
really crappy, but their voices do hold weight there. And it's all about perception. So hopefully
yeah,
things get better when we go to GOA. Maybe I'm not going to IWA. I really wanted to go. Um, and you know what I found weird is a lot of people don't know what IWA is. And is it because we're niche? Is it because we like little manlet French guns, or so, like for
If
what
you ask,
reason do they not know what that is?
uh, if you ask my wife, she would be because Americans are untraveled. That's what she would say.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Than other
I'm
parts of the
like,
world.
Dustin's working it, right? And so I have an in. That's my cheater in, right? But like it would be cool to go. I would definitely, I want to go, but it's just so expensive right now. So that's the only reason. It's not expensive to get there and to stay there. It's cheaper to stay there than to stay anywhere here. But because I have four children, a dog and chickens,
Yeah.
so
That's
it gets expensive.
Yeah, I was supposed to go this year, and I'm having a kid. I don't know if I told you that.
Yeah, you did.
Um,
Yeah, congratulations.
thank you. And so I told my wife that I would travel less this year.
Yeah,
We're already doing a week in the UK for F Class Worlds, filming that, and so
yeah.
that I have a R thing this summer, and um, also, like, I'm under no delusion that I have no clue what it's like having a child, so I don't really know how difficult this can be.
Yeah.
So I'm just
You just strap
assuming
them
it's
to
gonna be.
yourself and you're good.
I'm just assuming it's gonna be way harder than it is, and I'm just
Yeah.
planning accordingly. If it's easier, that's a great surprise. But the main reason I wanted to go to IWA is because I'm in the UK so frequently, and
Yeah.
I talk with companies that are over there, and deal with the organizations out there for shooting. That I was like, this would be a good place for me to go and continue those connections. And so I'm bummed I didn't get to go. It is in Germany, which is on my bucket list of places I want to visit. But
Yeah.
I'm planning going next year. Provided having a child is not way, way, way harder than I thought. Um,
Travel with them while they're
that's
younger and they will acclimate. That's
yeah,
my
that's
best
what we were just
advice. Yeah.
talking about. So yeah, IWA, and then there's the POMA conference as well, which I'm still trying to figure out if I'm gonna go to. The NRA. I mean, there's so much stuff if you really wanted. I'm still looking for that big sponsor that's like, hey, we'll fly you everywhere and just represent us, you
Yeah.
people. Like that would be the dream. So NRA or Gun Owners of America,
That's
let's have a
strategic
conversation.
though, right? Like that's a little bit more about if you want to get into the depth of some of the stuff that you and I kind of do on the business
Yeah,
side, like strategic marketing tactics. Um,
yeah.
that
Well,
was
I'm writing an.
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
Oh,
so
okay. Well, you go first.
so right. So that was an interesting I think that was an interesting side that some of the folks that were new to me that are maybe only on they're not in the kind of corporate minded side of the firearms industry. That was a kind of, I think, an interesting perspective for them to experience through me is um, everything I do is very strategic, though it seems very casual and very fun. I'm seeing, I know exactly who I'm seeing at SHOT Show and I know exactly what my goals are while I'm there. And so it's all strategically planned and well researched on who they are with, what they are doing. Maybe they have some family life posted on LinkedIn. And so we're using that information and being very strategic with it. And I know that you have mentioned that that was something that was interesting to watch last year, where I kind of walk up to somebody and I pretend like I know them already, and I've never met them in my life. So, but I know
Yeah.
everything. So that's my favorite.
Like, hey Keith, Montauk looked like a lot of fun last July.
Yeah. How's your grandmother? I heard she was unwell. Happy
I took a bit of
birthday.
the yeah, exactly. I took a bit of the Kendra approach on that front this year as well, being a little more strategic, on that front, particularly because I have a bit of a political agenda behind my moves this year. I'm currently working on an article. Loose title is how AI is wiping out the outdoor industry, and
Yeah.
mostly about AI filtering and regulations that are leading to these shadow bans or suppressions through media. And so I sort of wanted to talk to some of these bigger entities and sort of see, like, is anybody going to address this freedom of speech issue that we're having in our
I
industry? Uh,
I feel like there were several people that I had met at the USCCA booth that kind of brought up similar topics, casually speaking. Um,
yeah.
and right, and how what we what's her name? Um, oh shoot. I can't remember. I can't recall her name. I'll have to pull it up for you later. But so I met a few gals who really had a lot to say about that, and a few writers who had a lot to say about that. Where I mean, even just in their specific type of pocket of the industry that they're being silenced, and they were the news carriers for so long, And there's a few podcasts out there right now, but one of them talks about very specifically how AI is influencing all of manufacturing and all of distribution and all of consumption of information, and what does that mean
Yep.
for us as people who are sharing information, and if things are regulated properly on AI, there shouldn't be an issue. But the problem is will we get to the point where we're too far and then have to backtrack? And then what damage has that done to us, right? As a
Mhm.
society, as an industry, and things
Yeah.
like that. So there were a lot of people that I met at SHOT Show this year, where I also went in with kind of that perspective where it's a little bit more politically motivated. I took a break from social media, right? Because I was tired of the shadow bans and all that, and I changed my name, which you're not really supposed to do. So I changed everything, right? And so yeah, it's definitely an interesting place to be and an interesting place to exist. I know that there was somebody at SHOT Show who talked on AI. There was somebody who was giving uh, a speech of some sort on AI, and I can't recall who that was, but I did remember seeing or hearing about it. So maybe we should look into that and see what she also had to say. So
I noted I noted that as well because I knew it wouldn't be able to attend. A couple of speakers I thought were relevant to reach out to on that front, and I don't know. I guess maybe you feel this as well because you've been in the space for a long time. But when I first started, I very much felt like a content creator because it was like I'm just making some fun videos and I'll pull my phone out and I'm at the range
yeah,
and whatever. But like over the years, I have $40,000 in production equipment. I research and interview and I do very high end articles on this stuff. And I'm like, it feels less and less like content creation and a lot more like a
media.
profession, right? Like a
Yeah.
journalist or media like that. And in that way, and not to take anything away from content creation because it's a shit ton of work, but um, it just like I start to feel the reality of being silenced, and I've never really had that before as like a male, right? And like I've always been relatively big and things like that. I pretty much can say whatever I
Yeah.
want,
Yeah.
respectfully, but and so it's such a weird space to be in where I'm like AI is essentially deciding my worth and the
Yeah.
work that I'm doing,
Yeah.
whether it's important or to share, and that's a very it's a demotivating feeling for sure, but it's certainly a discouraging feeling, right? Because it's like, and there's just no way to work around it, and because I do consulting in the space, I have to have that very real conversation with companies and be like, look, if you want to continue to do what you're doing, which is pretty much the only thing you can do because you make firearms, um, well, you're gonna get these bans, and until we figure out a way around them, we have to try to find some alternative things and just keep doing what we're doing. And I mean, you understand that, right? So
That's
I don't
always
know.
been like the after the Obama administration, how we market firearms has always been a challenge, right? And how we approach that because we couldn't use commercials and we can't use certain tactics in advertising firearms. So social media is like critical to the success of a campaign when it comes
Mhm.
to social media marketing in the firearms industry. Um, but yeah, so the restrictions on AI are the restrictions we give it. So we better hope that the powers that be that are in charge of that are really thinking things through before they're letting them get to that point. But it may be too late. We don't really know. So we don't really know. But
I hope not. I'm on the precipice right now of switching platforms, and that's sort of a really difficult thing to do. I mean, I've already done
right.
that with TikTok, but
I
I'm
know.
just like, what else can we do? And so I don't know. This is not a pity party on me. It's just it's a sort of a lens on the industry as a whole. And so we'll sort of see where that goes. I'm always excited to be able to have conversations with someone like you who loves to have fun in the industry, but also understands the business and the politics behind it.
For sure.
Before we jump off, I did want to make sure that we gave you any opportunity to talk about. I mean, we haven't really talked in like a year, right? Like a little here and there. Well, I mean, what have you outside of going to Shot Show, which is always fun to talk about? Like, is there anything else you've had going on that warrants conversation?
I think it does. So I took that time off of TikTok, right? So I also made the switch. I'm focusing on Instagram now. But I left because of the government shutdown. So my husband has spent 22 years in the Army National Guard here in Utah. Um, and during the government shutdown, none of those guys worked. I run an organization, or I assist in running an organization at Hill, which is a food pantry operation. And that was a lot of work, and it was taking up, it was almost like 20 to 30 hours a week on top of our regular jobs, a lot of tears involved. But we got approximately, I want to say like around like $17,000 in donations through connections and relationships that that I built with my team. And then, gosh, I want to say it was about 6,000 to 8,000 pounds of food donated to Hill.
Nice.
And we had like 3 volunteers
Mhm.
like unpacking all of this. And so because of that, I was nominated for military spouse um, of the year for the AFI. I guess it's technically I would be the National Guard spouse of the year against other National Guard spouses in the country, and so it's pretty exciting. I'm supposed to be going to Washington D.C. if all of this works out. We just finished like our first round of like voting and things like that, so it's very exciting. So
Yeah, I saw it. I shared it.
thank
I'm
you.
all about it. I know that you have, that sort of heart for giving, and so we'll continue to help anywhere we can. Matter of fact, shoot me a message. I'll get it sort of in our regular newsletter that's going out, so we can
Yeah, I
help
think
where we
it's so
can.
important to think, in 2020, there was an article released from Blue Star Families that indicated that like I want to say it was like 14% of military families felt like they were facing food insecurity. And that's such, when you think about how big our military is, like that's a big number. That's a lot of people whose children are not eating, or they're only eating through school funded lunch programs. And so I just couldn't live with myself knowing that was happening. And so it's something that I've been working on for several years. I've just never been very loud about it. And so, or I've never expected recognition for it. So it's a little bit of an awkward predicament that I'm sitting in. So, because you were like, oh, you're awesome. Thank you. And I'm like, oh, you're welcome. So don't talk too loud. So,
No. Well, working in nonprofits such a it's a weird place for the individual who's passionate about it, because it's
yeah,
like you really don't want recognition because that's not why you're doing it. But then when
yeah,
you get it, it's like oh, I'm glad somebody appreciates the work I'm doing. Then you feel a little bit guilty because you're like, that's not why I'm doing it, right?
right.
I totally Yeah, I totally understand. I mean, I've been in some form of nonprofit since I was a child, and so right now I serve on the board for the Guardian Long Range. They
Oh,
put on
nice.
long range events and other things to raise money for foster care and children in need across the country. And yeah, it's sort of the same thing, right? And so it's beautiful to hear what's going on. I'm glad you're being recognized for it.
Thank you.
And I hoping people will continue to support you and the foundations or organizations that you're working with. So important. As a person who grew up in foster care and has had many meals missed due to not having money, I will tell you it is a very, very hard life to live when you're trying to achieve some sort of success, and you do not have the sustenance to concentrate or anything like that. And so,
Right.
bless the work that you're doing. It is really important. And so, thank you. Not to harp on it too
Oh,
much, but thank you.
oh, no, of course.
Um,
Did I ever tell you that I was a licensed foster parent?
you
Oh, I
did,
did.
yeah.
Okay. I was
I was
like,
just,
I think we had this conversation before, but okay.
I don't know. That's why we're kindred souls. You're like my spirit mom.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I love working in nonprofit. I actually just picked up a new job as a marketing and development coordinator for a nonprofit. So it's been a lot of fun. So
Yeah, I do love it. It's like dude, my soul gets pulled back that way. And
I
unfortunately
know
and
it
unfortunately,
sucks you
it's
back
terrible
in
for
all
me.
the time.
And it's I just was looking at a job this morning. It's essentially it's a major donor curator, and
Oh, nice.
they they had a thing on there for the right employee, you work 30 hours a week, and I was like, this position pays 80 to 100,000 a year. You
Yeah.
need like in what world are you not working 100 hours a week to try to make your income back? And because they want a minimum of $10,000 donors and up. And
Okay.
I was like, no, dude, this is your whole life now. Like, there's no way you're working
Yeah.
30 hours.
No,
So
capital
that's
campaign management is misunderstood for sure because no, you're eating, breathing, sleeping it. So
I was just
yeah,
laughing. I was like, oh,
they
no, I
just didn't
wrote
know.
this. That's not it. So
Yeah,
anyway, well, anything else before we jump off?
I don't think so. Hopefully, I wasn't too harsh on the internet towards men.
It's always great to have a women's perspective on the podcast, talk about it openly and truthfully. I think our egos will get over it, and there's new guns coming out all the time to focus on. So,
For
you know,
real, for real. Focus on something, relevant.
so. Well, I don't know. You said you sort of took a break from social. Do you have socials now that if people do want to get into contact with you or follow you, that they can?
Sure. Yeah, I'm still on TikTok because it's the easiest, in my opinion, it's the easiest place for me to go viral. But so I'm on TikTok as a long range bun, but my Instagram is actually kept up with. So I just started posting back on it. I have like 20 posts. so so I you know, lots of room for growth. But yeah, so I will be posting about a lot of the events that I'll be attending when I go to Washington D.C., GOA, a lot more strategy stuff, a little bit more focused on the development of growing your career in the firearms industry versus just existing within it as a content creator. So yeah.
That's great. Well, if you guys want to follow, make sure you guys do. Appreciate you being on as always. Very fun and enlightening conversations when we have the time to talk. And for those of you guys that are following, make sure you give a like, share, comment. Goes a very long way for us to continue to grow this community. And if there's anybody that you guys want on, whether it be a company or an individual or an AI robot that wants to, fight their case. Our videos shouldn't be shown. Let us know. Remember, this is your podcast. I'm just the host, and I will see you guys next time.